But first, we knew it would happen when Vladimir Zelensky and the Spirit of Ukraine got Person of the Year, by the way, both. We knew there would be one group of people, the tankies of the tankiest tankies, and their dorkiest of doors that they walk through. Jimmy Dore would be very upset. So Nazi stuff, I guess.
Our guest, Ray McGovern, is a former CIA officer turned anti-war.
Oh, I see. So if you used to work for the CIA and you say what Jimmy likes to hear, you're trustworthy now.
Activist. He was a CIA analyst from 1963 to 1990.
Uh-huh. And nothing happened during that period that's sketchy. So he's basically all the way up until Iran-Contra made him leave.
He received the agency's Intelligence Commendation Medal, but in 2006, he returned the medal in protest over the CIA's use of torture. He currently lectures and writes about issues of war, social justice, and the role of the CIA for Consortium News. Please welcome Ray McGovern. Ray, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Jimmy.
So now,
thanks, Jimmy, and thanks for giving me a platform to tell how the Jewish president of Ukraine is a Nazi.
you did you specialize in all things Russia when you were in the CIA?
I did. Yeah, I majored in Russian, postgraduate Russian, and turned to be a CIA analyst after my military duty. It was 1964, and my first account was Sino-Soviet relations. So I know a little bit about relations between Russia and China.
Yeah, during the 60s and 70s.
Well, let me just...
like, literally left right before the opening. That's not telling at all? Was he stationed there? I can't wait to find out.
The big news today is this, that Time Magazine made Zelensky their Person of the Year. And I don't want to go through all these... If you get a like a magnifying glass, I just want to go look for all the Nazi insignia on their arms and these photos. But I'm sure you could find a few. But this was interesting because back in this was from like 1996. It says
yeah, after this guy left the CIA.
Thanks to the rescue, the secret story of how American advisors helped Yeltsin win. So he was just nothing but a puppet of the capitalists in America, right, Ray?
I'm afraid that's right, Jimmy. And the Time magazine is performing true to its reputation. It's never seen a war it didn't really like.
Okay, so by saying that, they're basically outing that influence, though. So both are true? All right.
So now I know some Russian stooges are...
and he means me.
Going to have a problem with this cover with Zelensky on it, but I know that Man of the Year is just a fun, silly nonsense title, like the Nobel Peace Prize or.
Oh, I see. These are. He's reading Kurt Metzger jokes. That's why Kurt started laughing right as he began to read. Did you guys notice that? Back this up for a second. Watch.
True to its reputation, it's never seen a war it didn't really like.
So. Now, I know some Russian stooges.
See that? Here's Kurt laughing because he knows his own bits are coming.
Are going to have a problem with this cover with Zelensky on it, but I know that Man of the Year is just a fun, silly nonsense title, like, the Nobel Peace Prize or the sexiest man alive, right? They're all the same. It's not a big deal. So let me show you this video that Time Magazine put together to see if this turns your stomach. Watch this.
Ukrainian flags are now flying in the city of Kherson after Russian troops withdrew from the area.
Ukraine's president made a surprise visit to Kherson, the largest city retaken to date from Russia.
Is it the beginning of the...
And does anybody have any idea what fucking Jimmy's reaction to seeing this is? Like, why he gets so upset at the ideas in this? Because, does he really just look at him and seethe and go, this Jewish Nazi?
The end of the war.
I was able to join President Zelensky on a trip to Kherson. He wanted to get there as fast as possible. His security were dead set against it. They told him, please don't go. At least wait so that the mine clearing teams can go through. Russian artillery could very easily strike. It was extremely dangerous. He acknowledged that and he said, I still need to go.
Again, why is that a reaction? What in the fuck is going on in Jimmy's CBD-addled brain?
The situation on the ground is painful and tragic, but I think what a lot of the coverage misses is the positivity and the resilience that Ukrainians show. Even when there's a blackout, even when there are missile strikes, people continue to try to go about their daily lives, not give in
By the way, that bridge footage is from way earlier this year.
to despair, not give in to
But it's the first time Jimmy is seeing it.
depression, to keep living.
By the way, I'm only going to do the first 10 minutes of this because it's a half hour long.
Boy, did you see that long line of soldiers there trying their best not to sig heil? I don't know if you saw that.
God, fucking hell. The nerve of this fucking dude. Basically, he's making the case that the people who are being bombed in this situation fucking have it coming.
Boy, he wanted to get there as fast as possible, so all the soldiers started trying to hail him a cab. That's what was happening.
People, their resilience. They keep trying to hail cabs even though there's no cabs coming.
So, by the way, I'd like to remind everybody, and it comes up every time Jimmy brings this up, that somehow the U.S. Is, we're attacking. Hold on. We're, Oh, no! Here you go. That Jimmy says that we are attacking Yemen with the Saudis as our proxy, and that the United States is bombing and occupying Yemen. But apparently, and this happened last year. Now, understood that because it's not in English, Jimmy just thinks they're all, I guess, hailing cabs. These are all Yemeni Houthi rebels hailing cabs and not yelling death to America, death to Israel, and curse and death to the Jews. Yeah, death to all Jews. That's what's happening right here. This is not, during the Yanukovych regime, or even during Poroshenko, when when Poroshenko's regime, when they started weeding out some of the people that were there, by the way, largely put there by the Russians or backed by the Russians too, to in the same way that they backed Facebook pages by the Charlottesville Jews will not replace us crowd and help push this nonsense. None of this, this was last year. This wasn't 10 years ago. And according to Jimmy's standard, we should be able to, I guess, threaten them with nukes because they have it coming.
Remember when Times Person of the Year was you?
Yeah.
And it had that reflective cover on it so you could see yourself in Time Magazine? I was like, whoa, Time Magazine, I haven't mass murdered anybody. Why would you make me person?
No, not mass murdered. He is largely responsible for the deaths of 4 police officers. The 4th one that Gavin Long killed died just a little bit ago. He lived with traumatic brain injury and his spine severed for several years afterwards. And Gavin Long, the guy who ambushed those police officers, was inspired by and quoted Jimmy Dore from TYT videos. TYT has, of course, hit all of Gavin Long's videos with copyright strikes, even though he was one of TYT's citizen journalists. So I don't know. I think Jimmy's selling himself short.
Person of the Year.
Like they were accusing me of something, it felt like.
Right, I got
Well, by the way, Kurt feels like his reflection always is accusatory to him. There's no way that Kurt Metzger sees his reflection and doesn't feel guilt.
So, what I said is, if you want to know how the war machine keeps Americans cheering for more war, here you go. Time Magazine, they really knew how they do top-notch propaganda. That's what this is. Let's not forget that they also loved him. He was their Person of the Year.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. The Person of the Year is not someone they're always celebrating. In this case, with Zelensky, they are, but they've made other people who are awful the Person of the Year because that person had the impact about it. And there's articles inside about how fucked up that impact indeed was.
And of course, their most famous Person of the Year was Hitler. So
Saddam Hussein was a person of the year, I remember.
I wouldn't. Boy, and Zelensky's being a great sport about it. I'd say to tell you, Adolf Hitler, George W. Bush, and many other mass.
By the way, he's raiding Kim.com now. So Jimmy Dore is interviewing former CIA agents and quoting Kim.com. Can we take a look? Let's see. At the general tenor of the current Kim.com feed on Twitter, shall we? We go to, here he is, entrepreneur, innovator, gamer, artist, internet freedom fighter, and father of 6. This is Kim.com right there. Let's see. He's very positive. Nuclear war, he gives a thumbs down to that. Let's see. The future of AI is okay. This is him. He's posting pictures of himself done with AI. Let's see. U.S. we have to win this war or face consequences, meaning tons of lethal U.S. arms will flood the black market. According to Raytheon, the U.S. government sent a 5-year production supply of javelins to Ukraine, but most U.S. military aid is unaccounted for. No, where it goes is unaccounted for. Let's see. While Rep. Maxine Waters checks the inbound wire transfer, Senator Sherrod Brown and Pat Toomey told that they will issue a subpoena to compel him to appear about SBFX-FTX. Why do Democrats love inviting drag queens to schools with young children? Because over 80% of LGBTQ plus voters back the Democratic Party. Read this to understand. Let's see. LGBTQ plus and illegal immigrant farming are key long-term strategies to increase the voter pool for the Democratic Party, ? And cites his own. There you go. We know that the U.S. government created COVID-19 by funding gain-of-function research at the Wuhan lab in China, but the U.S. government also created gene-encoded vaccines since 2012. The U.S. military came up with the idea of messenger RNA vaccines, not Pfizer. There we go. You can see why Jimmy is falling slowly and deeply in love. Robert F. Kennedy, anti-vax stuff. Venezuela plans to invade the United States. Okay, that's John Kennedy. Caught in the web. He's got a whole movie of himself. Here's why the media is calling the Twitter files a nothing burger. Because they are. Yeah, and this is the one he's citing. Here it is. Adolf Hitler, George Bush, and many other mass murderers had this time honor. It won't change the fact that Ukraine is the sacrificial lamb in a U.S. proxy war with the goal of to unbalance Russia and deindustrialize Germany. Zelensky is a U.S. puppet, and this is U.S. propaganda. Yes, we've had a goal for a long time to make sure Germany doesn't have an industry anymore.
Murderers had this time's honor. It won't change the fact that Ukraine is a sacrificial lamb in the U.S. proxy war and the goal to unbalance Russia and deindustrialize Germany. Zelensky is the
Germany
U.S. puppet, and this is U.S. propaganda. So let me bring you in right now. Do you agree with that? Is this proxy war? Now we know they're trying to put an economic hurt on Russia, but is it also to deindustrialize Germany?
He has to agree with it. You just told him.
Well, that's a side effect, a very welcome side effect in U.S. circles. What has happened is...
Why? Why would deindustrializing Germany be a welcome side effect? The fuck? Again, why would you want Germany to enter sort of an industrial failed state status along the lines of like Bosnia-Herzegovina or fucking Serbia or Russia itself? The fuck are you talking about?
The German economy is going boom, and that is because they can't get enough oil and gas to run their big factories. Some of them are coming to the United States. Then when the Nord Stream pipelines were sabotaged and John Brennan from the CIA got up on MSNBC and said, it must be the Russians. Russians sabotaged their own pipeline. Well, that's how bad it gets. And what did the Germans do? The Germans who are going to freeze this winter and their economy is going to go... Phoom.
Apparently, this guy has... zero ethics. The idea that you would, I this is the main way I make my living, but I'm not going to do it anymore because the person I work for is a complete scumbag. This is the effect of like looking at the New York Times walkout, for example, and saying, why would the people in the, that work for the New York Times watch their livelihoods go toomp if, unless they were in on it or being pressured to do it somehow, instead of just saying they want better standards for their living and other people's living. And what's the difference between Germany effectively staging a walkout against their energy supplier?
Well, they said, well, turn the other cheek here. Let's do what else we can for the United States. So it's not the Germany I used to know back in the 70s when Willy Brandt was around and could stand up to the U.S. and say, no, we're going to have a decent relationship with Russia. And
yeah, asshole. There was no Nord Stream 1 or 2 back then. There was no Russia back then. It was the USSR.
And the benefits that accrued from that were substantial.
And set them up to be on a leash.
Why this current crop of German officials are willing to sacrifice their own interests for U.S. interests, for NATO interests, so to speak, is really, it's not beyond me. It's part and parcel of how they've acted as infants and then as adolescents since 1945. They ought to grow up. They ought to be able to stand on their own 2 feet.
Yes, well, the last time Germany stood on their own 2 feet before 1945, the actions that they engaged in while standing on their own 2 feet, apparently when, according to this guy, they were adults, they did a lot of fucked up stuff. Stuff, by the way, that Jimmy accuses current Ukrainians of doing.
You're talking about the politicians in Europe, or you're talking about the politicians specifically in Germany?
In Germany, stupid.
Mostly in Germany.
That's what he was taught. We all heard it, right? How fucking thick
is what counts, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And the others take their cue from Germany. I lived there 5 years. I know the Germans.
In the 70s.
Some of my best friends are German. But they have this characteristic, of bending to pressure from the United States, and they can't get...
No. Actually, it might be a policy they developed after we handed them their ass after they tried to wipe out everyone on the earth that wasn't German. By the way, the lack of irony in this fucking conversation is stunning.
Get out of it. They have very, very neophyte, very adolescent, sophomoric people in charge, politicians, pure and simple, and they don't really respect what German national interests are. They see themselves.
Yes, when are the nationalists? And Jimmy's a socialist, of course, at least he says he is. When are the National Socialists in Germany going to learn how to stand up again? Fucking hell. Like, did these dicks have any idea what kind of rakes they're stepping on? Or do they even care?
As an attachment, as sort of an attachment to the United States. It can't break out of that subordinate relationship, just like Yeltsin, just like Zelensky. They're puppets, and they apparently enjoy being puppets because they think, up until now at least, that their future is in the West. And they're going to find that their future has gone downhill.
Has it gone? Is that just the gesture? When he went to gesture camp this summer, that's what he's selling. Also, so the future of renewable energy is what he's talking about from the West, and a lack of reliance on Russian oil and gas, and a shifting of where they get their energy from that may take a period of time, but will eventually, because the Germans didn't run out of the innovative genes that they have, or the ideas, or their education system their education system doesn't run on fucking diesel from Russia. People aren't getting dumber because they don't have Russian gas from Kazakhstan. So the idea that in their shift away from reliance on Russian crude oil to some other sources or indeed other methods of gaining energy, that somehow in that shift away from fossil fuels to modern technology, somehow this asshole thinks that that's a direction that guarantees the collapse of Germany as a country. It's just weird.
Ever since they decided to sign on to this war in Ukraine.
And what do you make of Zelensky himself? Now, I know he
is a Jew after all.
I have an affinity for him because he was a comedian who pretended he played the president in a TV show, and now he actually is president. And just it made me feel good that comedians could become, real players on the world stage.
But Jimmy's never going to run for office, as our dear friend Carlos Alazraqui always points out. Like, it's great to have that goal, that idea that can happen, but never do anything about it, because you'll have your ass handed to you, and you'll actually have to come up with solutions instead of just being a backbiter.
Makes me feel embarrassed that the one comedian that does is this corrupt guy who provoked a war.
Oh, did he? He provoked a war. That's right. Zelensky shouldn't have worn that short skirt in January.
What is your feelings about Zelensky?
Since I've just told you what mine are, and that's a classic host trick of defining the conversation.
Well, Jimmy, he was a good comedian, and he's a terrific actor. Let's face it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But when he took office on the strength of a campaign to make better relationships with Russia, he got turned around. By whom? By those same people who are waiting for a taxi, the neo-Nazis.
Yes, he's a Jewish puppet of neo-Nazis.
Made very clear. Look, we're not going to obey any order from you. We're going to keep shelling the people in Donetsk and Lugansk. Go away. You're not in charge. And then, of course, the Americans chipped in and said, the neo-Nazis are right about that. You're not in charge. We're in charge. And don't be thinking about making any deals like you tried to make in March and April. That's out of the question.
By the way, he didn't think of making a deal in March and April. The Russians reached out, and the Brits said they're not going to give you any land back. They're just biding their time. And that's absolutely true. Like, it's materially true. The Russians themselves have admitted to it multiple fucking times.
We're going to use this to defeat Russia. You're just I don't say you're just a pawn, but that's the deal. You stay in office, that's what you got to do.
So there was a peace agreement that was able to be instituted back in March and April, and that's when Boris Johnson got on a plane, went there, and at the behest of NATO, and told them, you better not do this, or you're probably going to end up dead. So he didn't do it. So is that...
Yeah, not that NATO's going to kill him, or the British are going to kill him, or the Americans are going to kill him, but that the Russians are going to fucking kill him. They're going to bide their time and attack Kiev again.
At why he doesn't his life is threatened not only by NATO, but also his life is threatened by the extreme right wing, the Azov Nazis that are in Ukraine, correct?
Then why would he go to fucking Kherson when they could just martyr him and say it was the Russians and then use that as an excuse to do whatever the fuck to Nazify what? Western Russia?
That's right, yeah.
Oh, wait, too late.
He has no options, really, except to play this role, and he's playing it beautifully. I mean, he's Time Person of the Year, right?
Uh-huh.
But he's going to realize that this doesn't last, and he's going to realize that within the next few months, when those mobilized Russian troops, 300,000 in number, completely outweigh and outgun what the rest of the Ukrainian army is right now, and that's less than 200,000. They don't have the upper hand. You don't.
Okay, first of all, this guy is so talking out of his ass. The 300,000 mobilization already ended. Those people are all they were a good 70,000 of those guys were at the front line within 9 fucking days. They've had to mobilize another million allegedly while lying about it. And even those folks aren't showing up. This is ridiculous.
You don't have to be a military analyst, as an intelligence analyst, as I was when I was in the Army back in the early 60s.
Yes, when everything was exactly the same as it was now.
I mean, look at the map, for God's sake.
Yes, that's it looks very different after 1990. As a matter of fact, these people have been moving closer and closer to control of their own democracy after separating from Russia this entire fucking time. It's almost like it's an incremental process, and the Russians have been undermining it ever since to maintain control of the natural resources there and in Georgia and Chechnya and Kazakhstan.
Look at the map. Look at the lines of communication and supply, okay? Russia's got it hands down. What is the U.S. going to do? Is the U.S. going to... So, in other words...
Wait a minute. Is this guy just going to pretend the Crimean bridge, the Kursk bridge wasn't knocked down, or that the Ukrainians haven't been pelting the living shit out of supply lines, and that's exactly what drove them out of Kharkiv and drove them out of Kherson? Again, this is Scott Ritter bullshit. This is just basically, he just found the Tom Hartman of Scott Ritters, looks-wise. Tom's a good dude.
The U.S. wants to keep this thing going.
No, we want it to end, but we want it to end with a free Ukraine without the Russians just getting a pause so they can kill more Ukrainians.
On the sort of benighted notion that they can weaken Russia. And they're not going to weaken Russia unless, of course, it comes to nuclear weapons.
Okay, first of all, yeah, they are. The Ukrainians are weakening Russia. They've hit 2 air bases inside with shit we didn't give them. Nobody did. They built it themselves.
And that's off the table as far as the Russians are concerned. Why? Because they're principled? No, because they don't need. And, you know, this is a codicil. Putin never threatened to use tactical nuclear weapons. That is a propaganda ploy. He didn't say that. He doesn't mean that. All he wanted to do is remind people, hey, look, you know, we're going to use everything at our disposal.
Yeah, right. We're going to use everything we have, and that includes nukes, but that's not the same as warning you we're going to use nukes. What the fuck is this dude talking about? Holy shit.
His words. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a former RT and Sputnik news guy, Consortium News. That makes sense.
Of course, includes the ultimate, the nuclear weapons. But he doesn't have to use them. And he must be very, very suspicious as to why the United States and other propaganda media keep accusing him of threatening to use tactical nuclear.
Okay, first of all, fucko, the constant accusations about Russian use of nukes isn't that Putin constantly says it. It's that fucking Simonyan and Solovyov and everybody on Channel 1, by the way, Simonyan's his former fucking boss if he worked at RT. They're on all the time talking about how they can just nuke the fuck out of Ukraine and they should just go ahead and do it. And if they want to use tactical or you know, ballistic nukes, you know, literally just decimating entire cities, they should just go ahead and fucking do it. They've been saying that shit for months. And they say that, and they're on the Russian state television apparatus. They can't say anything on those shows that doesn't get clearance from the top. And when they do veer off, those guys just vanish. When somebody says the truth on those channels, you never see them again. Them saying, yeah, we should just pepper Ukraine with tactical nukes and we have the right to do this and it's coming. And then having Vladimir Putin simply say, we're going to use everything at our disposal is the same fucking thing. Strategic. Thank you.
So why would Germany
want to back Nazis
and Europe be willing to, because all these sanctions we put on Russia is actually hurting us more, the West, right?
No, it isn't.
Like we had high gas prices. We have
Ooh, you had a slip there. What was that again, Jimmy? Hold on. Run that by me again, dummy.
And Europe be willing to, because all these sanctions we put on Russia is actually hurting us more, the West, right? Like we had high gas prices, we have high inflation, and Europe.
Okay, first of all, the inflation that he's talking about is not because of the Russian war. High oil and gas prices were temporary, but they've come down. And by the way, let's see. Let's look at it right now. Let's see. Let's look at this current thing right here. Yeah, there we go. Holy shit. It's even worse than I thought, or better, depending on your opinion. I think better. WTI crude, look at that, 71. It is getting close to the 60s, kids. And that's with the Saudis lowering production to remember right before the midterms, they decided they're gonna lower production a little bit, and everybody's like, that's because they don't respect Joe Biden. And look at Brent crude though. Brent crude is at 76. That's the first time. I mean, I'm sure it's been below 80 for a couple of days now, but we haven't checked it in a little bit. That's the first time I've seen Brent crude below 80. Holy shit. Look at natural gas. How much? All right. This dude has $1 million house, for fuck's sake. This socialist has $1 million house. And this fucking guest of his is a former CIA guy who worked for RT. He's got close to 1 million subscribers on YouTube. Is it just that the number of subscriptions is in contrast to how right you are? Is that why I've only got 45K? Or is it just because I'm new and he's been around for a long time? I think that's more it, because he left with a big barnacle of TYT people. Yeah, sure. But the point is, subscribe. How much more right can I be? Seriously. How many times have I, what did I say earlier this year? What did I say by the fall? What did I say about oil prices? And everybody, there were a bunch of people calling me an asshole, basically, in no short order, especially around June. You remember that shit? Anybody? Yes, I don't have any Russian bots, that's true, and I don't have any artificially inflated numbers, but let's just operate as if the numbers are real. Because for the fucking record, I would like to say, I was right and everybody else was like, I don't know, it's never going to be. It's going to be at 120. Trump himself was saying $170 a barrel. There were articles on fucking CNBC and Fox News Business Channel where they're like, we're looking at $210 a barrel. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Why? There's no reason. By the way, and this is why he's saying we had high gas prices, because they're coming down, because the oil prices are coming down, and it's not going to change, because once you start pumping that shit, you can't stop, man. Look at how low it went during COVID. It was already going that direction.
Europe, their energy prices are they might not even have energy for the winter, right? They're worried about people dying from it.
I love dead talking points, don't you?
And there's big economic pain being inflicted there.
Yeah, but it's for a good cause, and you're fighting against a moral war in your own, how you spend your money against the Russian invasion. What Jimmy can't understand, and his grandfather can't understand, is why people would be willing to sacrifice their comfort and their economic stability temporarily when some country decides to attack another country apropos of fucking nothing, and full on threatens that we could nuke Berlin in the conversation. Why would Germany decide to not continue to run their industries on the lifeblood of that economy?
So I don't get what is in it for them to go along with the United States. Does the United States what is the threat that they hold over Europe?
Yeah, it couldn't possibly be a moral decision. It could not possibly be that the Germans actually believe this fight is real. It could not actually be that the Ukrainian people are in a fight for their sovereignty and their lives. That can't be true. That's too real life for Jimmy.
Europe, right? Because, and then if you could also tell, because my guess is the real reason for this war.
Yes. Tell him what he's supposed to say, Jimmy.
Is the big part of it is the United States wanted to sell more liquefied natural gas to Europe because Russia provided 40% of the Europe's energy, and we wanted part of that market. And so this was a way to
No. That natural gas market, if we were going to build it naturally, genuinely, no pun intended, it would go to South and Central America. Because gas is, you have to liquefy it and then deliquefy it to use it, and it's better to just run it through pipelines. That's why Russia has such a stranglehold. If they could just buy it from anybody that had it, they'd have been buying it from Qatar this whole fucking time.
Do it. And so what's in it for Europe? So go ahead, take it from there.
Yeah. Well, Jimmy, I really regret you're asking me questions that I don't know the answer to.
Oh,
all right. On that note, that's the state of the conversation about Jimmy and co. about Zelensky being person of the year, along with, by the way, the spirit of Ukraine, the Ukrainian people. Because to Jimmy and his ilk, it can't possibly be true that this fight is for anything meaningful, because Jimmy's entire life is devoid of meaning. Jimmy's very similar in a lot of ways to Trump. All of his relationships are transactional, and he thinks the sun shines out of his pores, and therefore he's incapable of building any meaningful bonds. And so he can't understand anybody defending theirs, their children, any of this stuff. It's all sort of an academic argument based more on his desire to be right, or feel right. I should be more specific, because he's so wrong so often. But he's really dug in on this idea that the Ukrainians have it coming, that they deserve this. And that NATO, if we knew what was best for the Ukrainians, we would just let the Wagner group rape their way across the country. And then if they really ever decide to go after Poland in 3 years from the position of all the resources that's in Ukraine and obliterate the entire population there, that's not our business either. That's Poland's problem. That's Moldova's problem. And that mutual assured destruction, the existence of nuclear weapons, is there so to act as an umbrella under which Russia can do whatever the fuck they want to anyone else just short of launching a nuke, because they've got nukes and you don't dare touch them. I mean, they are a rapist with a handgun, and all you've got is a knife, is the theory. That's the quality programming one could expect quite regularly on the million subscriber channel of Jimmy Dore. That the gift from TYT that just keeps on giving. Now, I need a palate cleanser after that, because Jesus Christ, that was gross.